You know that thing we all do, that endless, mindless scroll through our phones. But have you ever stopped to wonder if it's actually costing us something? Well, we're about to break down a super interesting science project that tried to answer that very question.
Yeah, it's a question we should all be asking, right? I mean, we've all been there, lost in a feed for who knows how long. But does that little thumb flick actually have a price? Like a real cognitive cost? Does it mess with our focus? Or make us forget what we were doing literally 2 seconds ago?
Well, instead of just wondering about it, one student actually decided to find out. They put together a really simple experiment to get a real answer. So come on, let's walk through their project together, step by step, and see what they found.
All right, so every good experiment starts with a question, a little bit of curiosity. Let's look at how this student framed their whole investigation.
And what's so great about this is how simple the whole approach is. We're not talking about some high-tech, million-dollar lab here. No, this is a classic old-school science fair project. You know, the kind that's designed to be super clear, easy to repeat, and just laser-focused on getting one single answer.
Okay, now this part is really important. The student wasn't trying to solve, all the world's problems with social media. They were smart. They narrowed it way down to one very specific, testable question. If you scroll for just a little while, does it change how well your brain works on memory and attention tests right after? So here's their hypothesis, their educated guess. They predicted that the people who were scrolling would actually score lower. Why? Well, they'd done their homework and found research suggesting that mindless scrolling kind of puts our brains in this weird state where we just start to forget stuff. It's a pretty bold claim, right? Let's see if the data actually backs it up.
Okay, so they've got the question, they've got the hypothesis, now it was time to actually set up the experiment. And how you set it up is everything if you want results you can trust.
And again, the beauty of this whole thing is just how simple it is. No fancy machines, no complicated gear. All they needed were a few people, a laptop for scrolling, some basic paper and pencil tests, and that's it. It's the kind of thing almost anyone could do at home.
Now, the procedure itself was actually really clever. Here's how it worked. First, they split the group in half. For 10 minutes, 2 people scrolled on a laptop, while the other 2 just sat there quietly. As soon as the 10 minutes were up, boom, everyone took the same short tests for memory and attention. But here's the really smart part. They did this whole thing 3 times, and each time they switched up who was scrolling and who was sitting quietly. That way, everyone got to be in both groups, which makes the final results way more reliable.
All right, the stage is set. The tests are done. So what exactly were they measuring?
It really couldn't be any simpler, could it? You've got one group, the scrollers, who just spent 10 minutes on a laptop. And you've got the other group, the non-scrollers, who just sat quietly. The only thing that was different between them leading up to the tests was that single activity. That's it.
Okay, here we go. This is the moment of truth. Did the results match the prediction? It's time to dive into the numbers.
First up, let's look at memory. The non-scrolling group, they scored a 35. The scrolling group, a 33. Now, you might be thinking, that's not a huge gap, and you're right, but it's still a difference. The non-scrollers did better.
But then, look at this. When we check out the attention test scores, that same pattern shows up, and this time it's even clearer. The non-scrolling group hit 101, while the scrollers only got 96. That's a full 5-point difference. Once again, the people who just sat quietly performed better.
So, when you put it all together, the results are just really consistent. In this particular experiment, the people who sat quietly before the tests did better on both memory and attention than the people who had just spent time scrolling. No ambiguity there.
So, what's the big takeaway here? What conclusion did the student actually draw from all this data?
Well, in the student's own words, their conclusion was clear. The results backed up their original hypotheses. The data told them that, yeah, infinite scrolling seems to make you forget things, and it weakens your attention.
But honestly, here's what I think is the most mind-blowing part of this whole thing. This wasn't after like an hour-long TikTok binge or a whole afternoon lost on Instagram. No, they saw a measurable difference in brain performance after just 10 minutes of scrolling. Only 10 minutes.
And that, right there, is really the big takeaway. I mean, sure, it's one student's project, but it's a powerful suggestion, isn't it? It suggests that those little tiny breaks we take, those harmless scrolls to our feeds, might have a real, immediate impact on our ability to focus and remember things right after we put the phone down.
So that kind of leaves us with one last thought, doesn't it? Now that you know that even a quick little 10-minute scroll might be dulling your mental edge, what are you going to do with your next 10 minutes?